So you're writing a wedding speech and you want to make it funny, but you've gone online to look for stuff and everything that you're finding is either just hacky and cliche or they're just dad jokes. And you don't want everyone to just roll their eyes so bad that they're going to detach your retina when they're hearing them. So I'm going to show you how to spot a comedic opportunity in your existing speech and how to add the joke there and how to get the most mileage out of that joke. So spotting a comedic opportunity. Now the other day I was on a speech review call with a client and he'd written this best man speech, and the review calls are where we get on Zoom for an hour and I go through the speech with you and help you punch it up, lift everything up, the humor, the sentiment, everything. So he has a great speech, he wants to make it a little bit better. Well, he's got a story in there about how he first met the bride. So the bride and the groom, they came up to visit him to upstate New York, and it's a great story because just everything went wrong that weekend. It was pouring rain, just a hurricane coming, and then they went somewhere to eat, and they'd lost the reservation, so they couldn't do that, and then they were driving home, and just to not make it a bust, they said, oh, there's a winery, let's stop at a winery here in upstate New York. And I'm reading through it, and I go, that's an opportunity. I hear winery in a place where wineries generally aren't, and, don't troll me with comments, but you don't usually, it's not the first place you think of. So it felt like a setup. You want to look for places in your speech where it feels like a setup, because a joke is two parts. It's a setup and a punchline. If you have a natural and organic setup, oh, that's just begging for a punchline. So they've gone to this winery in upstate New York, and he said, yeah. I said, how was it? He said, well, it wasn't really good. I guess our expectations were a little high. I went, oh, yes. So the expectations were a little bit high for this winery. Okay, so let's try to think of a kind of grape and a city that's kind of somewhere near where this winery is. And he came up with Yonkers. Well, that's a funny word. And Chardonnay. So he came up with, yes, I guess my expectations were kind of high for a Yonkers Chardonnay. It's just funny. It's part of the story. It's organic. It's not forced in. It's just a great way to wrap up this story. So that is spotting the comedic opportunity, and which usually is a setup, and adding your punchline. Now, how do you make the most of that opportunity? Well, it's something that in comedy is called a callback. And a callback is a reference back to an earlier joke. So you've got your speech, right? And maybe you're getting towards the toast. And generally when things start getting towards the toast, that's when it really starts getting emotional. Because you've done all the business of thanking people, and you've told all the stories and how they met and how you met and what you think of them. And it's where you're going to start to feel yourself well up. And so that you don't get all the way through the toast without any kind of laugh, with just sentiment, a great way to add a joke is a callback. So go back, look through the rest of your speech, find what you think is going to be the strongest joke in the piece, or one of the bigger laugh moments in the piece. In this case, Yonkers Chardonnay. It's just funny. It's got a funny K sound, it's Chardonnay, it's a lot of syllables, it's funny. Yonkers Chardonnay, which will also be my stripper name if I ever go into that line of work. So we're getting to the toast. Now here's another comedic opportunity. What happens in a toast? Well, people raise a glass. Well, what's in that glass? Booze. Well, we have a joke that mentions booze earlier in the piece. So my suggestion to him was, you're about to ask people to raise their glass. Well, have them. And I'd like to ask you all to please raise your glass of Yonkers Chardonnay. That's right, we bought a case of it. To the happy couple, we wish you a lifetime of health, happiness, and laughter. But that's a way to, it's leftovers, right? It's leftovers in the best possible way. You have this joke that you've created earlier in your speech, and boom, it's going to get a really good laugh. And you want to use it again. So I guess it's recycling. Maybe it's upcycling. But it's like making the great Thanksgiving turkey, and then having a fantastic sandwich the next day. It's not diminished, you're just using it in a different way that is absolutely just as pleasing. And that's called a callback. Now, if you want a great way to start your speech with humor, watch the next video. It's a great way to start a wedding speech or any other kind of speech with humor. If you want to book a speech review call with me, there's a link in the description.